The sport of American football has been around for over 100 years, with the game constantly evolving, and with that large span of time, we've been introduced to thousands of NFL players, many of whom have become legends. So who are those legendary players? Keep watching to find out, because in today's video, we're going to discuss some of the most influential NFL players that have changed the league forever. First up, we have arguably one of the most influential NFL players of all time, Jim Brown. At over 230 pounds, Brown was as big as most of the linemen of his time, yet was still faster than most of the receivers during that time as well. As one of the most dominant running backs, Brown was easily one of the most athletic men to ever play the game during his time, as he had all the athleticism and size to be a great threat on the field, which he was indeed, as he finished only 9 seasons of play with 12,312 yards of rushing. To add on, Brown also scored 106 rushing touchdowns and averaged over 5.2 yards per carry throughout the span of his career. In 1957, he was named the NFL's Rookie of the Year and was also selected to the Pro Bowl each of his 9 years. Was also the NFL's MVP a whopping 3 times. Before Brown, most of the big running backs ran like bulls and broke tackles while dragging defenders for extra yards. However, Brown has changed the game. He was able to make quick cuts and accelerate for yards, and was a beast when in a defender's grasp. He ultimately paved the way for all the big backs who would come to follow, giving him a great example of how they can make a big impact in the game. Brown completely changed the position for good, making him one of the most revolutionary football players in the history of the game. Following Brown, we have Lawrence Taylor, who is one of the scariest linebackers in the league. Though there are many other notable linebackers, such as Dick Butkus, who we will also be discussing later on, Taylor was downright hostile, as he could easily crush opposing quarterbacks and some amazing great plays. He was impossible to block and managed to spend most of his time in the opponent's backfield, regardless of what kind of play was called. His speed and quickness was unmatched, and when combined with his superhuman strength, he was simply unstoppable. As for his accomplishments, Taylor was All-Pro 10 times, a Super Bowl champion twice, and was even in the AP NFL MVP in 1986, the very last defensive player to win the award. Though it was his physical attributes, his tremendous ability, and football instincts, along with many other amazing aspects, that ultimately make Lawrence Taylor a part of the best. Next up on the list is wide receiver Don Hutson, who, interesting fact, was one of the first ever men to play the position. In his career, Hutson undoubtedly revolutionized the game, especially for wide receivers. He essentially made the game more prominent and made receivers more than just blockers on the outside. In fact, Hutson has even been given credit for contributing to the creation of the many patterns that receivers still run today. He was one of the most dominant receivers during his time and finished his career off with 488 pass receptions for 7,991 yards in era, which was great considering that back then most teams had half as many passing attempts as they do today. In addition to his great stats, he was also named the league's MVP for 2 years in a row, first in 1941 and second in 1942. Overall, Hutson was revolutionary in the football, as he ultimately made the wide receiver more of an offensive threat and paved the pathway for football today. Up next, we have the 3-time Super Bowl champion Jerry Rice. Rice was selected to 13 Pro Bowls throughout his career and finished as the NFL's all-time leader in receptions, with 1,549 receiving, 22,894 yards, and touchdowns 197. While Rice may not have been the fastest or strongest receiver in the NFL, he was always willing to work hard to make himself better or improve the way he played the game. He could run flawless patterns and pluck the ball out of the air, but what really made Rice special was his ability to gain yardage after a catch. Rice was revolutionary for taking short patterns and turning them into long gains. He was crucial in taking the West Coast offense to a whole new level with his perfect cuts behind linebackers and in front of the secondary on crossing patterns. Once he had the ball in his hands, he always seemed to be faster and have a second gear with his long stride and shifty cuts. His greatness was unique, but his ability to turn short gains into scores was revolutionary and most notable. The 5th NFL player we're going to discuss is Fran Tarkenton. What set Tarkenton apart for the rest was how shifty and hard to break bring down he was. Not only was he a prolific passer with over 47,000 yards passing for his career, but he was also one of the best athletes to ever play the quarterback position during his time. Tarkenton rushed for 3,674 yards, averaging 5.4 yards per carry with 32 touchdowns. While Tarkenton did have impressive statistics and a successful career, what really made him revolutionary was his ability to throw outside the pocket and extend plays with his legs. As a matter of fact, he was one of the first quarterbacks to prove that raw athleticism had a place behind center. Other players such as Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers have tremendous value in this league, thanks in large part to Tarkenton. Tarkenton was a 9-time Pro Bowl selection and was admitted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1986, but will be remembered for his scrambling ability that really set him apart from the quarterbacks of his era. Following Tarkenton, we have Dick Night Train Lane, who was arguably one of the most intimidating cornerbacks to ever play the game. Lane had a very successful career and was quite revolutionary as he set the NFL record for interceptions in a season with 14 in his rookie year. He was also selected to 7 Pro Bowls throughout his career and has found his way onto several lists of the top players of all time in the NFL. However, aside from these accomplishments, along with holding the record number of interceptions, there are 2 main reasons as to why Lane was so revolutionary. First off, Lane was one of the first cornerbacks who used his outstanding speed to bait quarterbacks into throwing his way by purposefully giving the impression that he was beat on plays only to break on the ball once the pattern was diagnosed and the ball was in the air. Safe to say that he played with great instincts and had astonishing speed and acceleration. Lane was also famous for collaring receivers and ball carriers with high tackles and hits on the head. Before rules changed, Lane was one of the original headhunters in the secondary. His ability to tackle and break on the ball made him one of the NFL's all-time greatest cornerbacks and an inspiration for many of today's physically imposing cornerbacks. Next up is the one-of-a-kind Barry Sanders. Sanders was an exceptional player, as he was fast and quick with long explosiveness to fight through a crowded line. Playing 10 seasons with the Detroit Lions, Sanders averaged 5 yards per carry for his career and finished it with 15,269 yards rushing with 99 rushing touchdowns and trips to the Pro Bowl in each season that he played. Sanders could have easily played longer and might have been able to break 20,000 yards of rushing if he felt the need to play on. Although he wasn't the biggest or incredibly fast, his ability to change direction and stop on a dime was truly amazing. Sanders was one of the shiftiest running backs to ever play the game, with the explosiveness to run away from defenders who dared to get too close. In an era where defenders are getting faster and passing was starting to become a bigger part of the game, Sanders was always the best athlete on the field. Last but not least, the list wouldn't be complete without the one and only Tom Brady. Like other athletes of different sports such as Roger Federer for tennis and Michael Jordan from basketball, Tom Brady is an iconic athlete whom many people know, see, and admire. Even if you don't follow or watch American football, you likely have heard of or seen Tom Brady at least once. Throughout his 20 going on 21 years of his football career, Brady has accomplished what seems as unimaginable. He's played in 9 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots, winning 6 of them, and has played in 1 with his newest team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which he also won. In addition, Brady is also named the Super Bowl MVP for the 5th time, which was quite a remarkable moment. When many think of football, Tom Brady may come to mind, which is understandable, as he has broken tons of stats and records. He arguably is and always will be one of the greatest quarterbacks in the sport of football. He's a true competitor with an unmatched dedication to the sport, amazing leadership, great strength, both mentally and physically, and astounding courage. All in all, although he may not be a legend from the past like many of the other players from the list, Brady will go down in history as one of the NFL players that changed the league forever. With that said, that's going to wrap up this video. Who's your favorite NFL player we discussed? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.